All right, guys, welcome back to another 11 Yanks episode. Today, we are here to talk about the under-20 roster for the under-20 camp that has just dropped. And I'm very excited to have a good friend of the channel, Columbus Crew scout and USMNT youth expert, David Kerr.
Yeah, always great to be here, Pete. Always seems when a roster comes out, I'm here. So glad to be
You're
back.
in Columbus right now, right?
I'm actually living in Cleveland, but moved to Columbus next month.
Okay. Do you know how cold Columbus is right now? We have a game there in 3 days.
It's going to be snowy and like 20 degrees at best.
Whew. All right. Well,
let's
see if we get another snow game. But David, today we're here to talk about the under-20 roster. Now, before we dive into it, as a fan, you might be wondering, well, this is just it's a sort of a camp cupcake roster. There's no games. There's a couple of friendlies, which they will be playing. But, there's nothing competitive here. Why should I really care? Well, guys, you should care because this is probably, I don't think it's the last. I hope it's not the last. But one of the last preparatory camps we have for the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship this summer. Now, in the past, the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship was used as a qualification tournament for the Under-20 World Cup. However, now it doubles as both the Under-20 World Cup qualification and the Olympic qualification. So this tournament this summer will decide who goes to the 2023 Under-20 World Cup and the 2024 Olympics in Paris. On top of that, a lot of guys in this roster could be guys who play a role in 2026, the most important World Cup in American history, probably. So it's worth talking about. We have a very good roster. David, do you have any thoughts on this change? Why did CONCACAF change the way we qualify for the Olympics?
So there wasn't any real reasoning behind the change. I think the last one was kind of thrown together at the very last minute because they needed somebody for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And there might have been a partial scare to get it done earlier and qualified so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
The other thing I think may have happened, and this is me doing a super conspiracy, is that they want us to qualify. Our 2003s are very strong, and this gives us the best shot at it without having 30 kids withheld from the pool like the last two cycles we had.
Yeah. And the CONCACAF Under-20 Championship is a FIFA-sanctioned tournament, right?
Yes and no. So for youth tournaments, clubs have the right to withhold players.
Gotcha.
Doesn't matter if it's World Cup, qualifying, anything like that. So
right.
in 2017, Weston McKennie was going to be in the U20 roster. Schalke said no.
Yeah.
Also, Haji Wright, Nick Tadegui was in that same team with Weston, also Schalke. None of the three could go.
Because they wanted them to finish their under-19 Bundesliga instead of play at an under-20 World Cup.
Yep. Weston McKennie had like a substitute appearance at that point for Schalke's first team, but they literally withheld them to play with U19s.
All right, well, let's dive into the roster, David. And I've got the slides here, so we can really just go position by position. I don't know a ton about any of the three keepers. We've got Antonio Carrera, Kaimandi Dade. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Ramos. Take it away.
So Antonio Carrera, he's the youngest of this group as a later born 2004 keeper. Antonio is, I'm not sure if he's been announced yet, but one of the upcoming homegrowns for FC Dallas and probably the guy who will start in net for North Texas SC in the MLS Next Pro League, which is the U23s. So Antonio is the younger brother of Nico Carrera, who played in the U17 World Cup and is now Holstein Kiel trying to break into that first team overseas. And so Antonio's very tall. He might be 6'3", 6'4" right now. His reaction time is good. He's pretty solid with his feet. His shot stopping could be a little bit better, but he's still very raw. There's still a lot of potential there. But Dallas have a really talented upcoming keeper in their 06s, and they still thought Antonio was a good enough player to worth signing. So the next one up is Anthony Ramos, who's from LA Galaxy. So when this group was in the U16 national team cycle, Anthony Ramos was one of the two main guys for that group. He was in every camp. He was usually the starter of those groups, unless Gabrielle Slonina was playing a year up. So he's from LA Galaxy got loaned out last year, mid-year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an all right goalie. A little bit smaller than Antonio Carrera, still fine with his feet, still a decent shot stopper. He has to come in here and really show his stuff, or else he doesn't have much of a shot of making this roster and when the full group is in.
So Gabrielle Slonina obviously is the number one right
Yep.
now, I see, for this team. He's with the senior team at the moment. There was another kid from Fulham who didn't make it. What was his name? He played in Revelations Cup.
Yep. So that would be Alex Borto. Alex Borto, yep, he was the Fulham guy. He has gotten a lot of training with the first team.
Mm-hmm.
There's been rumors that he's the third or fourth keeper in their depth chart there at a club that has a shot at getting promoted back to the Premier League next year.
Mm-hmm.
Good with his feet, good shot stopping, has the size, has the speed to get down. Overall, really solid. Long term, he's going to be a really good prospect. He's not quite Gabrielle Slonina talent. I mean, Gaga Slonina is in the senior national team at 17. Borto, I wouldn't expect to do that, but those are the top two from here and starting out. The third guy would be a player who didn't get released for this camp in Chris Brady. Chris Brady is another keeper at Chicago Fire. When Fire eventually sell on Slonina for a lot of money, I would expect Chris Brady to step right in. Brady is not as good with his feet as Slonina, but he's a better shot stopper. I believe he won USL League One Goalie of the Year, had like Save of the Year too. Also 17, same age group as Slonina. They were just very fortunate to have two top-tier goalies in the same age group.
Right. So, Slonina, you said he's good with his feet. It's a little hard to tell because Chicago punts it long at every goal kick and rarely plays out of the back. So it's really tough for me to see how good he can be with his feet.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's Zach Steffen with his feet, but if you passed it back to him with the ball, I wouldn't be too scared of him shanking it.
So talk about Dade.
Yeah, gonna be frank, I know nothing about this kid.
Okay.
Like every single time I've watched Galaxy 0304s, Anthony Ramos is in net. So something to be noted is that Jeff Dusnup, who is a 2004 homegrown at Real Salt Lake, was supposed to be in this camp and got hurt just a couple days ago.
Gotcha.
So I'm imagining this kid is his injury replacement.
Got it. We're doing pretty good on our U20 goalkeeping pool, I got to say, with Brady, Slonina, Dusnup, Carrera, Borto, all of these guys. Probably one of our stronger positions, no?
Yeah, it's the 2004s are a really bad age group overall, but for some reason their goalies are like stacked. So we'll take it.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about the fullbacks here. We have Michael Halliday of Orlando City, already a pro player now for, I think, 2 seasons. Caleb Wiley, who looked pretty good in Revelations Cup. Noah Allen, USL Young Player of the Year. He's played in USL last season, I think, for Tampa Bay, right?
He was Fort Lauderdale.
I'm sorry, Fort Lauderdale, and was the Young Player of the Season, which is awesome. And Mauricio Quevos, who just made the move to Club Brugge. What are your thoughts?
So first one up, Michael Halliday. Michael Halliday is a very big kid for a fullback. I believe he's like 6 foot to 6'1" already. He's kind of a budget version of Joe Scally, where he's tall, he's pacey. You can see the athletic build in the kid right when you're watching him. Gets up and down the line very well. Combination play, he's okay. Fine with both feet. I thought from this cycle starting out, Halliday would have been the backup to Mauricio Quevos, listed right under him. So seeing him in camp isn't shocking. Halliday got 6 appearances for Orlando City's first team last year, and it was all in summer of 2021. And then out of nowhere, he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Wasn't really listed with an injury or anything, so I'd be interested to know why. But this will be an interesting one to see him in camp and see how he performs and is rated compared to Caden Pierre, who really performed well last camp. But the big guy and right back in this group is Mauricio Quevos. When the 2003s pre-COVID were playing, Mauricio was chiseled in stone like the Ten Commandments, lock right back. He's extremely smooth on the ball. Can sauce a defender, can play inside. Combination is excellent. Crossing is very good. He's very proficient with both feet, enough to play left back. He's very pacey. He gets up and down the line well. His defending is all right. That's probably a weak spot of his, but he contributes enough going forward that it makes up for it. So the question with Mauricio Quevos is going to be, he did not play an organized soccer game in the entirety of 2021.
Yeah.
A lot of 2020, he was also left out of playing games too. At his age, that is very, very bad. You generally see kids in that 17 to 19 age range really start to take off in their development.
Yeah.
And that's why you see kids often in Europe really start to separate from Americans, because Americans for a while at those ages went off to college. European players were in first teams. So Mauricio not getting any games could very well derail this kid from a youth national team standout to a kid not on the roster.
Yeah.
And so the next two kids after this, the left backs, are the opposite. These guys got a lot of minutes during COVID. Caleb Wiley is just like Michael Halliday, Noah Allen, regular in USL. Atlanta United, he was the lock starter at left back. He was, for me, one of the better performers in the last 2003's Camp the Revelations Cup.
Yeah.
Athletically, he's very well built. He's probably the youngest 2004 in this group as well, but you wouldn't really be able to tell physically watching him. He's comfortable with the ball going forward. His passing is decent, not great. His crossing, again, is pretty average, but he's a lot like Julian Araujo as a left back. Not going to be the most saucy player offensively, but he's going to be a lockdown player defensively. Noah Allen is going to be a little more rounded than Caleb Wiley is. He can do a little bit of everything. He's good in the ball, good with both feet, athletically very well developed. Gets up and down the line well, stands out, creates going into the final third and into the attack. This kid deserved full well earning League One Player of the Year, or Young Player of the Year. So Noah Allen, I believe, and Caleb Wiley are both on homegrown contracts now. I wouldn't be shocked to see either of them start to get first team minutes. Caleb Wiley's really depends on if George Bello gets sold to Europe. But if Bello's hurt, Wiley's a pretty plug-and-play player at this point.
So as far as guys who didn't make this, are Jonathan Gomez and Joe Scally both still eligible for this age group? I think Gomez is.
Yep. Yeah, so Joe Scally is actually a day away from being eligible.
Oh, for real. That's right. He's born on the 31st.
Yep. The cutoff is January 1st, 2003. Joe Scally is December 31st, 2002.
Ooh. Oh, that would have been so great to have Gomez and Scally as right backs for U20 World Cup.
Like, Scally would be a significant player in this group. The 2002s, when they were in their U17s, the right backs in qualifying was Mauricio Quevos and Joe Scally.
I'm hoping that Gomez gets called because it's the summertime, and now that he's in Europe, they might be a little more willing to let him go to the championship in the summer.
Yeah, it's from what Gomez says, he wants to give the USA a shot, and also to note most of his close friends in the soccer world that aren't from Dallas are all the U.S. youth national team kids.
Right,
Evan Paredes, his best friend.
Yeah,
we saw what the difference it makes with Tim Weah and Serginho Dest with personal relationships and playing for a national team.
So Kevin Paredes and Jacob Green and Jonathan Gomez are not in this camp, but that's pretty good left back depth, I got to be honest, for this age group.
It is. And looking to the senior national team, these guys are all good prospects for that.
Yeah.
When you look at a Sam Vines type player, even George Bello, like what they're doing, you have 4 or 5 guys in this 2000 U20 group that can get to that level.
All right, let's move on to center backs. We've got Brandon Craig from the Philadelphia Union, Marcus Ferkranis, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Kobe Henry, who was recently in the Bosnia camp, and Thomas Williams from Orlando City. We saw Brandon and Kobe at Revelations Cup. right?
We
Neither of them
didn't-
really stood out in a big way. But go ahead, talk me through these guys.
Yeah, so the first one, a little correction. We didn't see Brandon Craig at Revelations Cup.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. That was the other gentleman.
That was
Justin
Jalen
Che.
and Justin Che, yeah. So first one up, Brandon Craig. This is one of my favorite players in the group for non-sporting reasons. He's just a good kid. He's an exciting kid. But Brandon Craig is the typical Greg Berhalter center back profile of token center back who can pass out of the back. Brandon Craig is good enough with the ball in his feet that he could probably and will likely end up as a 6 long term. So the question mark with Brandon all comes down to physical. The kid grew a ton from ages 16 to 18, 16 to 17, and 15 to 16. Kid's built like a stick bug. Once that kid puts on muscle and he becomes a more polished defender, this is a center back that probably has Europe come calling for him. So I'm not sure if he's going to start at this level, mostly due to physical maturity.
Yeah.
But at the same point, there's a year before the U20 World Cup. If he can start to bulk up, and he's already in that process. So it's not like he's still a $120 at 6'2". He's not like the next two kids, and Marcus Ferkranus and Kobe Henry. Both of these two are monsters physically. That's why they do well at the professional level in their games. Marcus plays with LA Galaxy 2, is also on a homegrown deal. Signed the same day as Jalen Neal, both center backs. So Marcus isn't quite as polished on the ball, but is very good defensively. Marcus and Jalen Neal at LA Galaxy were both involved in the final U16 national team camp for the 2003s before COVID happened. And Jalen Neal was a little bit better. I'd imagine Marcus Ferkranus is probably getting a run out here as a let's see what he's done, let's see how he's developed compared to Jalen Neal. Next one up from here, Kobe Henry. If you're watching this, you followed the national team enough to know that he was in the Camp Cupcake December camp. Kobe's a monster. He's like 6'2" to 6'3", built like an ox type player. His passing is better than what I saw in USL at the U20 level. It's not great, but not awful. And defensively, he's a pretty rock solid player. He's not the quickest, but at the U20 level, he's quick enough unless you're going to play Brazil. And then the final one here is Thomas Williams. So Thomas, I last saw play this summer in Dallas with Orlando City's U17s, who won the U17 MLS Next. Thomas is another just physical monster. He's got to be 6'4" at this point. He's comfortable in the ball, playing and dribbling out of the back. Defensively, he's pretty solid, but he's a little too aggressive in stepping to the ball and stepping defensively. At this level, he should do fine. I'd imagine he's probably rated as the 4th kid out of the 4 in this group. When you look to bringing in a Justin Che and ideally Antonio Leone, Thomas is probably the first kid that's dropped.
So speaking of Leone, any ideas why he's not in this camp?
No idea. Now, also note there's no LAFC kids in the camp. So that might be because first team didn't release them.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a new coach. Maybe they're trying to break into LAFC under Steve Cherundolo.
For Antonio, that's a legit question of if he can break in. We saw in Revelations Cup, with the exception of Justin Che, he's better than what we have.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, those two would be my starters, Justin Che and Antonio Leone. Question is if they'll end up getting released. The other one is Nico Carrera. I'm guessing he wasn't released because he plays over in Germany and is trying to break through the first team, like you said. Any thoughts on him?
Nico is 2002.
Oh, he's not eligible, right?
Yep, not eligible. I wish he was. Nico got done dirty in the U17 World Cup and the lack of minutes he had.
Yeah.
For two guys who started as center backs that already center backs.
All right. Midfielders. And this is looking like a quality group here. We have Caden Clark. Most of the viewers know him already. Paxton Aronson, likewise. Daniel Edelman, who recently signed a homegrown deal with the Red Bulls. Christian Fletcher. We definitely want to talk a bit about him. Jack McGlynn and Diego Luna. So I guess for most people who watched Revelations Cup, Paxton and Caden were the two standouts, at least for me, in terms of the attacking side. They showed a lot more technique and ability with the ball than most of their teammates. I thought Jack McGlynn had some really nice moments too, just maybe not quite as polished as the other two. But what I really want to talk about is Christian Fletcher, because this is the guy who's played high school soccer. It was rumored that he was joining. We know he was on trial with both Dortmund and Manchester United. But we don't know exactly who he's currently unattached, to be clear. What have you heard about this kid? Give us a little rundown of who he is.
So Christian Fletcher got discovered by Manchester United thanks to some very good performances with Bethesda SC down in Dallas at the MLS Next Showcase. So both Manchester United and Dortmund had scouts there. And yeah, Christian's first game, he had 2 goals and assists. That was really nice. He played pretty lights out that match in front of everyone. So all the people who were on the sideline at that match were all the people who have rumors about him leaving for Europe. So I'm surprised to see Christian listed as a midfielder.
Yeah.
Because he's a left winger. This is a kid who athletically is an outlier. He's got to be 5'11", 6 foot at this point. The kid's jacked, like physically.
And the youngest guy in this group, right?
Yeah, he's toned. He's the youngest guy. Even among our wingers, he's probably the fastest kid. Like, he'll compete with Cade Cowell for speed and Kevin Paredes for it. He's really technical and dribbling. His passing is all right when he actually wants to, but he might pass a little bit more at this level versus the other ones because he has competent players with him. So Christian did spend the last fall not playing MLS Next and instead played with his high school. I'm skeptical in the decision, but that also allowed him to go do more trials and free himself up for that.
Yeah.
I would expect to see him back with Bethesda SC this spring. He is rumored to be heading to Borussia Dortmund. The thing to be noted with Christian is that he has a Scottish passport. In 2019, that would be awesome. But Brexit happened. Fallout of Brexit is that English players and English passport holding players are no longer part of the European Union, which means Europe is walled off for you until you turn 18.
So you think he's going to have to stick around another 2 years before Dortmund, or you think it's just more likely now Man United?
Neither. I don't think you can even move to England until you turn 18 now.
Honestly, I'd kind of prefer he go to Dortmund than Man United from a development perspective.
No, it's going to England as a young player more often than not is a death sentence.
Yeah.
Christian's a good player. If he went to an MLS academy, he'd be on a homegrown deal by now. Probably would be one of the 2005s that would be competing for minutes in MLS at 16, 17 years old type player. I'm a little skeptical on his first team chances at Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah.
Because Dortmund have had really 2 significant American successes. Those successes were the best American prospects ever. That literally anyone could have said those guys are going to go and succeed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had Junior Flores go in, not do so hot, then faded out with an injury. Joe João got injured, faded out. There's been a couple others who went there and haven't done so hot, but that's a brutally tough team to break into as well.
Yeah.
So if he's up for it, he is. We'll see.
So Daniel Edelman is a 6 in a group that's a little lacking in 6s. Little light, to be honest, for a 6 for what I prefer, and maybe not as technical as I would like to see. But he's still young enough at 17 that he can improve. I want to give your quick thoughts on Edelman.
Yeah, he's a kid who's good at everything but not great at anything. We don't have any other 6s in this group. Like, just straight up, we don't.
Yeah.
The other kid who was going to be called in as a 6 was Danny Leyva.
Yeah.
And Leyva is out, I believe, with some type of injury.
Oh, no.
Like, Daniel Edelman does fine covering ground, breaking up plays defensively. And when you compare him with past 6s that the U20s have had, he's probably on par with those guys. Maybe not quite the hype Chris Durkin had. But like a Derek Jones, I think he's a better player than who he was.
So there are actually three more midfielders that were called in. They called in 9 altogether. Javier Casas, Javen Van De Venter, and Obed Vargas, the Alaskan native. I know nothing about these three. Could you?
Yeah. First one would be Javier Casas. He's a 6'8" from Chicago Fire. He's probably the most technical of the sixes that we'd have in terms of ability on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the quickest to get around the field and cover ground. But if you're looking for a kid that's going to help you be a possession team and build out, he's your guy. He did that for Chicago Fire since he was like 12 years old. He was the best one doing it at that age.
Mm.
So Javen Van De Venter is a bit of a shocker to be called into this level.
Okay.
He's like 10 USL Championship appearances as of 2004 for Sporting KC2. He was average in those games.
Mm.
Danny Leyva was withheld from this camp like 4 or 5 days ago. This is the kid who was probably called in and oh shit, we need another player last week. And so then the final midfielder here is the second 3 2005s in the camp, and that's Obed Vargas. So Obed is a center mid and an 8, can cover ground very good, being that shuttling linking player in midfield. He's not quite the best kid in the final third. He's not the most tactical and creative player there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a good player that can roam the field and make up for a 6 who can't do that.
Mm.
So is Obed U20 national team level? Not at all. He's the second kid in his position in his own age group at Seattle that I would have called into this camp. Who knows? Maybe he surprises.
Who was the other one? Reed Baker Whiting?
Yep, Reed Baker Whiting. He's also 2005 in the same position as Obed. Realistically, the best 2005 in our country. So I'd imagine Reed is probably withheld and not released.
Right.
Because Seattle are probably planning to get that kid minutes in the first team this year.
Right.
Obed is good and not quite minutes ready.
Outside of Reed Baker Whiting, are there any other guys who missed out, guys who should have been here, were withheld by their clubs, or just not available or injured?
In terms of the 2005 age group, or just midfielders in general?
Just midfielders who are eligible for the Under-20 World Cup.
I mean, Moses Nyman, we already said, is a big one.
Right, Moises, yeah. Would he play the 6 if he joined this group?
I think Moses is more of an 8, but
yeah,
for being a kid who's like 5'6", 130, the kid wins duels at a really shocking rate.
I would be really comfortable with a Clark, Aronson, Nyman trio in midfield.
I'd be worried about defensive stability, particularly in transition. But they're not going to lose the ball, ever.
And the thing is, Clark works really hard, too, at least in the press. Yeah. So he's a very physical guy as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm just worried that if they build out and they get past Caden Clark in possession, that they pass the ball right around him.
Yeah.
Who's going to stop them? Like, Moses does well to break up plays with the guy immediately around him.
Yeah.
If you need a Tyler Adams, I'm going to make a 20-yard burst and crack a dude. That's not quite Moses' game.
No.
Moses grew up as a 10 who made players' life a living hell in the DA.
Let's move on to the forwards. Just running out of time here. We got Brian Gutierrez from the Chicago Fire, Quinn Sullivan, another Philly homegrown, Dante Seeley, currently on loan at PSV2 from Dallas, Malik Sinogo. Boy, I'm going to struggle with this one. Esmir Baraktarevich is my guess.
I'm not going to attempt it.
And Patrick Bowie.
Bowie, actually.
Bowie. Patrick Bowie.
Yeah.
Gutierrez was, I thought, pretty okay. Gutierrez and Sullivan and Seeley, those were the three that I thought showed well, all things considered, at the Revelations Cup. They weren't, super consistent in every game, but they showed enough in limited preparatory minutes. I mean, that whole camp is really hard to judge because they were just thrown in at the last minute. Sinogo, I still have questions about. I didn't really see much of him in that tournament. What are your thoughts?
Sinogo is not a hold-up striker. He's a run-in behind, create that way, and rely on his athleticism to get the ball in to his left foot and score. He's going to probably at this level be a pretty service-dependent striker too. So if we're not getting him service, we're not creating for him, he's probably going to be pretty useless for us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so is Josh Sargent. We see what happens for a guy like that when your midfield doesn't do shit for you.
Yeah.
Ryan Gutierrez, like you said, he was the standout in that camp, in that cup, really. He was the kid that surprised the most overall. When Chicago announced 5 kids were signed with homegrown deals, he was ranked number 4 for me out of the 5 kids I rated, and he's turned out to be the best. Part of it is because athletically, he's already able to hang at this MLS level. But he came on against Brazil with 1 day's prep and was the only kid to actually do anything.
Yeah.
Quinn Sullivan's a good player. I expect him to have a huge season with Philly this year and probably get sold either this year or next year to Europe. He has a German passport, so he can go wherever the hell he wants in Europe. The only issue with Quinn is that he can be a little bit of a hothead, as we saw when he just kicked another kid in the second game and got a red card.
Yeah.
But Quinn has a ton of talent. He also comes from a family of very well-respected soccer players, and his youngest brother is a gifted player. And if he can get to Quinn's physical profile, is probably a Pulisic rank talent. But Dante Seeley, it's good to see him again. He hasn't really been doing much at PSV and Jong PSV.
Yeah, a young PSV.
So maybe this bumps his confidence a little. Dante is about as streaky of a player as it can get. One game he's going to score a hat trick. The other he'll connect 5 passes.
Yeah.
That's been the story of him since the DA, where this kid will literally score 5 goals in a game and then do nothing the next game. He really needs to show that he can be consistent, or else his spot in this national team isn't safe.
Yeah.
So now on to the third 2005 in this camp in Esmir from New England Revolution. Not going to attempt the last name.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try that. But I'm surprised to see Esmir listed as a forward and then Christian Fletcher listed with the midfielders, because Christian Fletcher's the winger and then Esmir plays as a 10 for the Revolution. Esmir has been the standout, arguably, in all of MLS Next this season. Just every single game, the kid has brought it. Playing with 17s, playing with 19s, playing with their second team. Kid is balling. He's extremely proficient on the ball. You want a kid who can play the final pass. You want a kid who can take a man or 2 players on. He's going to be one of those guys. He's an exciting talent. And he's in Norco. He looked the part. The only other kid in New England Revolution's academy who looked on the same wavelength of him was Noel Buck, who just signed as a homegrown. I would expect Esmir to probably be signing pretty soon. Ryan Sharetta said in his U20 team breakdown for this camp that Esmir was signed to a homegrown deal. I would expect this kid to graduate the academy level into the second team for the remainder of 2022. And then finally, the last kid is Patrick Bowie. So Patrick was a very big standout as a young kid, and a lot of it was because he's the same size as he is at 18 as he was at 14. But Patrick's kind of starting to bounce around from club to club now. He was at Philly, got to the second team, did okay there, but you could kind of tell in terms of his soccer IQ and his technical ability, he's not quite first team potential. So then he left to FC Cincinnati, played with their 19s there. Was there for about a year, kind of the same story, just couldn't quite crack first team. So then finally he goes from there to his current club, Vele Bold Club in Denmark.
All right. So ignore the Philadelphia Union on the screen, guys, that he's not there anymore.
Yep. This U20 group needs strikers, though.
Right. I was just going to say, we don't have a really good center forward. And we have Sonogo, but after that, it's crickets. No center forward. Ricardo Pepi is technically still eligible for this age group. Now, you seem to think there's a good chance Ricardo Pepi will play this summer.
More seem to think versus hope to think, Reason being is that this U20 tournament in the summer doubles as Olympic qualifying.
Right.
We haven't qualified for the Olympics in 3 straight tournaments, which is 12 years of this year will be 14 years that we haven't played in an Olympic Games.
That being said, Ricardo Pepi had a full year at Dallas and then is playing instantly another 6 months with Augsburg. I feel like Greg is going to say rest this summer. We need you for the World Cup.
He honestly may, and if he does, I don't blame him.
No, I don't blame him at all. You don't want to burn out Ricardo Pepi at his age, you know?
Yeah. The purpose of a youth national team is not to win games.
No.
It is to identify the high potential players who can progress from U20s to U23s to the senior team.
Yeah.
In a typical age group, and this goes for every single national team of every country, you generally get 3 to 4 kids per group that become senior national team level players. So we already have one Ricardo Pepi right now. We have others in this 2003 class that are looking like high potential kids. Caden Clark, Paxton Aronson, needs no explanation there. Justin Che, good player. Moses Nyman, good player. Jonathan Gomez, Kevin Paredes, Mauricio Quevos, excellent talents.
Yeah.
This group has what I would call the men's national team quota, and enough of a quota to make up for probably the lack of 2004s that are going to get to that level.
Right.
You want a lot of lottery tickets in a youth national team age group for your senior team, because you're going to have a kid make a bad club move. You're going to have a kid get hurt.
Yeah.
You're going to have a kid who likes alcohol too much and parties his way out of the sport. Generally, you see, out of your high-level kids, a 30% scrap rate at least of kids.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's kids who won't be in this cycle that emerge and surpass these kids. In the last U20 group, that wasn't canceled. Brendan Aronson started getting minutes at Philly 2 months before the U20 World Cup happened. Now look at him.
Yeah.
Lock national team.
Yeah.
But even a Zach Steffen type, Zach Steffen didn't get that notice until he stood out at Maryland, and then went over to Europe and was eventually on the U20s.
Yeah.
Even Horvath, I don't think was involved. That's our hope with this group, particularly with the 2004s and 5s, who they're not good age groups.
Maybe that's something we can talk about another time, because I do think it's worth exploring, you know, why that's happening. But David, we are running out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck on Thursday. Are you going to be at the game? No. I'm
going to watch that from the warm comfort of my apartment.
Probably a good move.
Using at the game. So
always appreciate you coming on to talk U.S. youth with us. Any last thoughts?
No. So as we've said in previous ones before, if you ever watch a U20 game or you're diehard enough to watch a DA game, these kids aren't finished products. You're going to watch these kids with probably the perspective of what is a professional, first team or senior national team player.
Mm-hmm.
These kids aren't that. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to have tactical issues that when you're watching, you're like, why the hell didn't you do that? But they really don't think that way yet.
Yeah.
And it just comes with more reps and more experience.
Yeah.
You saw kids that are ahead of others at the time. Caden Clark, Paxton Aronson showed that.
Yeah.
You see kids that are probably late developers. So unless the kid's performance is shockingly bad, don't write them off at this level.
Absolutely.
Unless the only exception really is there is a tribute to them that is such a big red flag that from a senior national team perspective, they're probably not going to get there.
Yeah.
Like Danny Leyva and his speed.
Well, thanks again, David. I will talk to you soon. Guys, thanks for watching. Leave any thoughts or questions for David in the comments, and we'll see you on the other side.